Hi, everybody. Capt Ron here with this week's episode of Fearless Flight Live. I'm flying solo tonight. Dieter has some family in town, and he was previously engaged. So, welcome. This is our weekly effort to keep you informed about all things about flight anxiety and things in the news. And so tonight I put together a show. I had my next door neighbor ask me about what do you do when you're sitting there waiting in the airport? And he said, I'm not really that afraid to fly. I just would like to know, what do you do to kill the time? So I thought that's a great opportunity to put a little show together about how do you prepare to fly? And it may be old hat for some of you, but we'll see if it has any value here. So let me share my screen and let's get this show under the road. Oops, I gotta go back. Come on there. There we go. So, welcome again. As I said, this is Capt Ron, and this is Fearless Flight Live for our weekly show. This is for people who have a fear of flying. If you know somebody who is afraid to fly, we're just fascinated with airplanes and flying, and want to keep tabs on the industry. In any case, you've come to the right place. We have a Facebook group that I encourage everybody to join. It's for people who are looking to end their struggle with flight anxiety. And if you haven't joined, if you're not a member, please go to the link there, flf.link/BOF for Birds of a Feather. Our name, it's free. It's a great resource. And when you log in there, please leave a message to let people know that you're there. Tonight, I've come up with a presentation here to talk about how do you navigate a routine flight, just any old flight with confidence, from packing to pushback. So I've put together some topics in there that hopefully will be of interest for anybody who has flight anxiety or people who just want to know what's the best way to get ready for an airline trip. We'll have an update for things this week in aviation, just a couple of things that I thought might be of interest to everybody. And of course, if you have any questions, and this is going out live on Facebook and YouTube. If you do have a question and you want to send it to me, I'm going to give it a whirl here. Please feel free to use Facebook Messenger. I've got my Messenger open, and hopefully I will see those pop up. So with that, let's get started. Okay. First, we'll talk about this week in aviation. There were three things that I thought might be of interest. One is Air India Flight 171. The investigation continues, and there's been a lot of pushback from the India Pilots Association, their union over there. And you might remember from last week, a preliminary report into the crash cited a fuel switch issue. The engine shutoff, the fuel shutoff switches that they said were found to have been turned off in flight. And they found some corroboration on that when they looked at or listened to the cockpit flight recorder, the CVR. And they found that one pilot questioned the other one and said, why did you shut off the engines? And the other one responded, I'm not putting too much exactness in this because we don't know exactly what they have learned from that, or any of the details, or even the entire conversation in context there. But anyway, the union saying that was premature and they shouldn't have done that. That's typically what you would expect from the union at this stage of the investigation, trying to protect their pilots and their reputation there. A couple other small things there. And American Airlines initiated, I'd never heard about this, but they're talking about one-stop security. And what that means is they have put together a program combining with for passengers and check bags at DFW in Dallas, Fort Worth, in partnership with the TSA, the CBP, that's the Border Patrol, and the UK's Department of Transport. So this one-stop security program streamlines customs and security for passengers connecting from London Heathrow Airport. So anybody coming from England will find it streamlined to go through customs and immigration when they land in the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. So I haven't experienced that yet, but I'll let you know if I do. Boeing deliveries have surged. Boeing's been under a lot of pressure. It affected a lot of the airlines. Both the controversy and the catastrophe with the 787 800 Maxes when they had the accidents back in 2019 and 2020, and then the recent issues with the 737 or with the 787 now, but what has happened is apparently they've gotten are catching up there, and they've delivered over 150 aircraft at this point year over year, which represents a 328% increase from the past. So that should help airlines, all the airlines, but I know Southwest in particular has been limited by the failures and deliveries because they are an all Boeing airline there. So, okay, so let's talk about this thing. Whether this is your first time with us here at Fearless Flight, or not, I assume the goal for everybody here is to fly with more confidence. And I'm going to start by saying something important. You're not alone. There's a lot of people out there. Flight anxiety is more common than most people realize, and it shows up in many different ways. Some people, it's physiological, racing thoughts, tense shoulders, obsessively checking the weather or looking at turbulence.com, or just dreading the airport experience. So tonight, I want to emphasize, we're not going to get rid of our fear in the next time you fly, but to understand it, work with it, and build tools that empower you to fly anyway is my goal. And I've designed this presentation tonight with your emotional journey in mind. So this is a perspective of what it's like for someone, and you don't necessarily have to be having fear of flight anxiety, but just somebody that doesn't fly that often, in knowing what to expect and how to prepare and get the most out of how to be ready in the best possible way. So tonight I hope that I'll offer some practical strategies, tools, and hopefully some shifts in your mindset to help you feel more in control. And you'll learn to prepare not just logistically, but emotionally. You'll discover how things like the airline apps, breathing techniques, and mindful planning can make a significant difference in your experience. And I'll try to remind you through it all that progress isn't measured by perfection, but by showing up. So let's begin step by step and breath by breath, if you will, and take a look. You've already done something courageous, and that's just showing up today. So pat yourself on the back, as I tell all my fearful flyers. Okay. Before you even leave the house, your nervous system is already on high alert. And that's because anticipatory anxiety often kicks in before any real challenge begins. And that's why how you prepare matters. Packing early and mindfully is one of the best tools we have to reduce that internal noise that goes on in our heads. We're not just throwing things in a bag. We're sending messages to the brain. And they sound like this: I'm ready. I've thought this through. I'm in control. Control is one of the most destabilizing things about having flight anxiety. And one of the best ways to do this is by creating a flight day list. So this is your external brain. It holds the essentials. It's your ID, for example. And you need a real ID now in the US in order to fly, or an alternative like a passport. You need a boarding pass. You need prescriptions. I highly recommend headphones and audio programs, things like gum or snacks, most importantly, things like your Fearless Flight Harmonizer and any other personal comfort items, such as a scarf, things for people who use aromatherapy, or maybe even a grounding stoat or a note to yourself to remind you that this is your day. And I had somebody who I know is traveling with a pet. And so if you're traveling with a pet, you want to double check that you've got what they need too: papers, treats, meds, and comfort items. And this will involve oftentimes looking on the airline site or calling up the airline reservations office and making sure that you don't have any surprises when you get to the airport with your pet. And remember, packing is more than logistics. It's an emotional prep. Every item you check off your list reinforces the message: hey, you've prepared for this. You're not rushing, you're responding. And you're doing so with care, clarity, and calm. When flying makes you feel out of control, small actions can go a long way to help you feel grounded. And the airline app is one of the most underrated tools for that. Many of you know that most of the airline, or all of the airlines that you would buy a ticket on, have apps. So you want to download the app a few days before your flight and take a moment to explore it and see what's on there. And at the very least, you need to download it before you get on the airplane, because once you get on the airplane, you won't be able to download it. And you need that app if you intend to use the free Wi-Fi that's available on most airlines. And remember, the app is not just tech. It's a personalized command center. Most apps allow you to check in 24 hours before your flight. They allow you to choose your seat and get your mobile boarding pass. Now, some people like to print out a hard copy. Some people like to get it on your screen, but then take a picture of it so that it's easier to find and you're not flipping around trying to get in your wallet like I do sometimes. And so this means fewer lines, fewer unknowns, and fewer last-minute surprises at the airport. You don't want to be surprised at the airport, because anybody with anxiety doesn't need any additional anxiety. And what's more, the app gives you real-time updates on your departure gate, any delays, even your baggage information. And that reduces the shock factor that helps you stay one step ahead of the airline in the changes they make. If you've flown in the modern era, that it gets very complicated, and there's a real demand for gates at each airport. And so when you land, especially when you land early, the airlines oftentimes don't have a place to put you. At the very least, you end up holding. At the worst, they end up sending you to a new gate. And one of the most efficient ways to find out what's changed in terms of where you're going to find your bags and what gate you're going to go into is using the airline's app. And if you're traveling through an unfamiliar airport, many apps include terminal maps, so you can find restrooms, food, and your gate without wondering or panicking. And this is really important when you're changing flights. And just for those of you who don't know the difference, a nonstop flight is a flight in which you take off from your point of origin, you fly nonstop to your destination, and without any intervening delays or legs. A direct flight, however, is one in which you take off, you fly to one leg and on to the other one, and often it involves you staying on the same airplane, but nonetheless, you're going to have another intermediate stop in the way. And then the other kind of flights are where you take off, you go to a hub, you have to change airplanes and get on another airplane to go to your final destination. So, and another thing about the apps is most of the apps that I'm familiar with even let you preview in-flight entertainment. So you can pick a movie or playlist in advance if you want, and it gives your mind a healthy distraction to focus on. You know that one of the quickest ways to learn how to adjust and cope on an airplane or on a flight now is through distraction. And so in short, the app turns your phone into a calm companion, one that you can use in advance, and in a place where so much feels outside your control, that is riding on a commercial airliner. This is something that you get to manage. So give it a try. And remember, not just the day of, but a few days before your trip. Familiarity builds confidence. And confidence builds calm. And what you need more than anything when you fly is confidence that you're going to be okay. Okay. So let's talk about leaving for the airport. It's not just about beating traffic, although that can be an important part of it, depending on where you live. It's about protecting your emotional well-being. And when we rush, our body stays in a state of alert, tight muscles, shallow breathing, tunnel vision. It's hard to access calm when you're racing against the clock. And in particular, if you have some anxiety about flying, you want to give yourself extra time. You give yourself, your nervous system, a chance to settle down in between disruptions and surprises. You can move at your own pace this way. Use the restroom without pressure. Locate your gate. Even begin using the tools you've learned before stepping on the plane, like listening to the harmonizer while you're in the boarding area. And use the commute as kind of a sanctuary moment where you turn down the chatter in your brain and put on a calming playlist or listen to something like the FearlessFlight harmonizer. And try what we call heart coherent breathing. That's where you inhale gently for 4 seconds and then exhale slowly for 6. I find with most people, in as few as 3 breaths, that is 30 seconds, they can appreciably slow down their breathing rate. And there are heart rate variability apps out there that you can use this to practice. And it's sort of a biofeedback mechanism where you can actually take a look at your breathing rate and compare it and actually slow down by practicing heart coherent breathing. And that small rhythm that when you breathe in for 4 and out for 6 signals to your body you're safe and you're in control. And when you leave early, you're not just managing the logistics, as we mentioned before, you're setting emotional tone for your entire flight. And it's a quiet but powerful act of self-care. And once again, it tells your brain and your body, we've got this. And that's what you need to say over and over to yourself there. For many people, many of you out there who are anxious, going through security can be one of the most triggering parts of the airport experience. The lines, the noise, the pressure to move quickly, it can all feel overwhelming. But with a little preparation and self-advocacy, this part of your journey can be manageable and even empower you. And especially for people who are flying after a long absence or never flying, this is one of the places where you want to get a good handle and prepare yourself for what it's like going through. So first, remember, TSA agents are people. It's hard sometimes because many of them are trained to work with passengers who have special needs, including anxiety. In the early days, post 9/11, the emphasis for the TSA was on law enforcement. And law enforcement generally doesn't create a warm, fuzzy feeling when you talk to the individuals. But I've noticed now, especially in the last few years, there are TSA agents out there that actually smile in line. And I remember to acknowledge them. I take a point of acknowledging them. And I'll joke sometimes that, if you smile, you might be at risk of losing your job. But it really makes a difference for people like nervous flyers. And so a simple statement like, hey, I'm a nervous traveler and I need a little space, just a little more space and time. And something like that can go a long way. And most agents will respond with patience and understanding. And it starts when you start to put your personal items up on the conveyor belt. That's where you want to let them know. And let people who are in a hurry behind you, let them go in front of you. That's why another reason why you wanted to get there early so you could do that. Preparation helps you feel more in control again. And so you want to wear shoes that are easy to slip off and on. You want to keep your electronics and liquids accessible. And you want to carry a calming object, a reminder card with a grounding phase, like a breathing cue. You might also consider applying for the TSA Cares. It's a program specifically designed to support passengers who need additional assistance. It offers to a passenger support special. It offers you access to somebody called a passenger support specialist who can walk you through the process. And this is a place where you can reclaim your voice. And instead of pushing through silently, speak up for your needs. The more you advocate for yourself, the more confident you're going to feel. Not just here at security, but throughout the entire flight experience. So remember that. You can call apply for this online at tsa.gov, and it's called TSA Cares. And you're looking for a passenger support specialist. And of course, many of you who do fly, but nonetheless still have anxiety, are members of the TSA's pre-flight or pre-check program. And when you do that, you're afforded some benefits, like you typically don't have to take out your laptop. You don't have to take off your shoes. You go through the old metal detectors as opposed to the rotating X-ray machine. And that doesn't mean that you might not be singled out and asked to have to go through a per individual screening, because they still do random screening there. Okay, so what are some tools you can use at the gate? Well, for many of you, the gate area is where the inner turbulence begins. This is where it starts to get real. That chatter up in your brain starts to talk to you intently. And you're so close to the flight, and yet there's nothing to do but wait. And this is what my neighbor was talking about. He was saying, what do I do to kind of ease that gap there? And this in-between times, so to speak, you can feel especially vulnerable. And feeling vulnerable is not comforting to somebody who's unfamiliar with what's going on. Your mind has room to spiral into worst case scenarios. All the what ifs seem to come tumbling out there, and your body can start to reflect that stress with tightness, jitters, or nausea. That's exactly why this is a crucial moment to intervene with tools that calm your nervous system and redirect your attention there. Let's see, let me look. Okay. There's a grounding technique that to put yourself in the present moment. It's called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it's real simple. You start with naming 5 things you can see: the snack bar, the jetway, the customer service desk, the overhead signs, things like that. Then 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste or feel internally, like the warmth of your breath. This simple exercise helps pull a lot of people out of anxious mental loops and into your physical body right here, right now. And the important thing to emphasize is, if you're already amped up and overloaded because you didn't plan or didn't prepare for any of this, even the exercise like this is going to be challenging for you. So that's why you want to do this before you get to the airport, so that when you get to the airport, it has a more natural feeling for you. And then try visualizing the journey ahead, not all at once, but step by step. So picture yourself calmly walking down the jet bridge. Find your seat, feeling settled with your favorite calming object in hand, or your electronic device, just anything that gives you a sense of feeling grounded. And your rider, that is the logical part of your mind, is gently guiding your elephant. That's the emotional mind. And what you're trying to do is direct that emotional part of you toward a new, more peaceful memory. You might even use something like distance self-talk, which you've talked about, which came from somebody named Ethan Kross, as a research scientist, and where you say to yourself, you've done hard things before, and you've got the tools now. And this is just another moment to breathe and stay connected. So putting it in the third person helps you distance yourself emotionally, and helps you kind of become your own observer, to see outside yourself, to see that even though you might be anxious and having feelings, you are more than your feelings. You're far more than your feelings. And waiting doesn't have to mean worrying. It can be the pause that makes everything else possible. Now, let's talk about one of the most underused tools in your toolkit, and this is pre-boarding. Now, for many of you, the idea of requesting pre-boarding can feel really uncomfortable. It might even make you more nervous, because you think, I don't want to call attention to myself. But believe me, I encourage you to fight that off. Here's the truth. Pre-boarding isn't about getting special treatment. It's about giving yourself the time and space to manage your nervous system. So when you pre-board, you don't have to rush down a crowded jetway or jet bridge feeling like you're holding up the line. You don't get stuck when the line backs up. You can step onto the plane calmly, find your seat, stow your bag, and start your grounding routine before the rush begins. And in addition, you know that many of you, I recommend not only pre-boarding, but to do that, you talk to the gate agent. You would explain to them that you have a medical condition, and you either need extra time boarding, or if it's an open seating situation, you need a special seat. In either case, they'll direct you to the sidelines there, where you'll probably see people with wheelchairs and stuff. The only thing that they might ask you is, do you need assistance? And all they want to know is, do they have to assign somebody the job of escorting you down the jetway? And you can just say no. But anyway, when you get over there, now you're going to get on early, and instead of just having the time to find your seat, what I encourage you to do is tell the flight attendant, hey, my name's Ron. I'm a little nervous about flying. I'd like to meet the pilots. That is the ultimate in pre-boarding, so that you can go up and train your pilot, as I call it, and let them know that you're not like them or a lot of other people. You don't fly all the time. And when you do, it's challenging. And tell them, above all, that you appreciate any extra information that they can provide you to help you remain calm and collected. And think of it as claiming your own runway, a chance to get airborne in the right headspace. It's the most important thing that people report back to me that they did when they were flying. Okay, so once you get on board, this is where you want to create a personal comfort zone. And you want to I want to encourage you to take ownership of your space and use pre-established rituals to create comfort. So as you get to your seat and begin to settle in, this is the moment to shift from the passenger mode to the personal comfort mode. Taking ownership of your space, no matter how small, can make a meaningful difference in how secure and grounded you feel throughout the flight. Instead of sitting there and noticing how tight the leg room is, how little seat space you got there, you want to claim this space. This is your space now, and make it feel that way. Place your bag where it's accessible. And you know, if you've flown before, when they want you to put larger bags in the overhead bin if you carry on a bag, and smaller bags underneath the seat in front of you, so you don't take up overhead space with a smaller bag. Take out anything comforting that you might want to get started with. Maybe you've got a headset. Maybe you've got a noise canceling earbuds or headphones. Get those out in advance. And maybe you have a neck pillow or a familiar scarf or anything calming that you have identified. And you want to arrange that space with attention. You're not just sitting on a plane. You're creating a safe little haven. And it's a kind of emotional bubble that travels with you. And this is how you get a good start for those longer than desirable flights. Instead of going for an hour or two, this is really important when you're going to have a longer flight, like going over the ocean or going to Hawaii. It's also the perfect time to engage in a pre-established ritual, something small and familiar, like soothing that signals your nervous system, we're safe. We've done this before. It might be opening a travel journal, pressing play on your audio visualization that I may have done for you, a custom one, or listening to the harmonizer. It might be doing a few slow heart rate coherent breathing examples, in for 4, out for 6. It might be simply repeating an affirmation like, I've prepared for this, I'm grounded, and I'm okay. Now, these rituals, they don't do what I used to think, and appeal to our superstitious nature. They appeal to our sense of needing an anchor. And they help you, some people wet their fingers, touch the outside of the airplane when they get on. And rituals serve a real legitimate purpose, as pointed out by Ethan Kross once again in his book Chatter. They calm your emotional elephant so that the rational rider can stay in the driver's seat. And remember, you don't have to just sit and brace yourself for what's next. You can be an active participant in your own well-being, even as a passenger at 35,000 feet. And that sense of agency or personal control is really powerful. And that's the fundamental thing that most fearful flyers lack, an underlying sense of concern, doubt, and feeling less than confident. Okay, here's a biggie for people. This is when the door closes, one of the most emotionally intense moments for many anxious flyers. It's the moment the aircraft door closes, and it often feels symbolic. It's like that clunk, if you're close enough to hear it, can trigger a surge of anxiety. What if I panic? What if something goes wrong? There's no turning back now. Kind of like the first point of no return. But here's the reframe that sound isn't a threat. It's a milestone. That door closing isn't trapping you. It's containing your courage. I know that might sound a little wishy-washy and all that, but it really is. It's the culmination of everything that you've been preparing for. It's the moment you say, I'm doing this, and I'm choosing healing. I'm choosing to get on this airplane, even though it's hard. And this is a time that you lean on the tools you've practiced. Use distant self-talk. Once again, like, hey, Ron, you're doing something incredibly brave. And you say your name like I did. You knew this part might be hard. You showed up anyway. This is where the rubber meets the road for people to decide whether they're going to stay on or whether they're going to get off. And you try to anchor your attention in the here and the now, because the only place that fear takes place is in the future. So when you sit there, notice the feel of your seatbelt. Maybe cinch it up just a little bit. Listen to the hum of the airflow coming out of the overhead vents. Feel your feet on the floor. And these are conscious things that you say to yourself. These aren't just things that you hope that you'll think of. You might want to write these down. You might want to have this written down, kind of as a script to go through this. And let yourself exhale slowly and completely. If emotion comes up, it's okay. Feeling afraid doesn't mean that you failed. It means that you care about your safety and your mind is trying to protect you. But in this moment, your job is to remind your nervous system, your elephant in particular, that you are safe. And if you're here, if you've made it this far, then I want you to hear this. You've already succeeded, because that is the major milestone that you need to accomplish to have a successful flight. Growth doesn't happen when it's easy. It happens in moments like this. So when you stay with the experience instead of running from it, and that is when you stay with the experience instead of running from it. So the next time that the door closes, take a deep breath and say to yourself, I'm not stuck. I'm stepping into something new. I'm flying forward with strength, compassion, and the rider and the elephant working as a team for me. Now, every flight is unique, not just because the destination is unique, but because of who you're traveling with. So we touched on before, if you're traveling if you're flying solo with a partner, children, elderly parents, or even a pet, the emotional terrain shifts, and it's important to plan accordingly. If you're traveling with kids, build in extra time and bring familiar comfort items, depending on their age, like snacks and headphones, blankets, books, coloring books, their own personal electronic devices, and walk them through the steps of the journey ahead of time using your simple, reassuring language. Their calm often begins with yours. And I've said to people who have younger children, they can actually be one of your biggest assets or resources, because it can help you detach from your own personal memory or misery. And you can join them. We had Roxana, who was on the show last week. She had just arrived back from Japan, and she had this really challenging flight of flying 11 hours with her kids. And she came up with a whole regimen of a plan, and she was able to even work in part of that, engaging with her 10-year-old son, talking about Harry Potter and watching some of the Harry Potter movies. So these are the kinds of things that you can use when you're traveling with people. I mentioned before, if you've got a pet, you want to make sure that you've planned that and you got all your ducks in a row when it comes to getting on board with that. If you're supporting a nervous partner, okay, this is for those of you out here who might be listening who are not fearful flyers, but you're listening on behalf of somebody else, or an elderly parent, practice patience and prep them with details in advance. Having a written itinerary, knowing what to expect at security, you can be their guide. And you can also do this, you kind of get out of yourself and detach emotionally. And sometimes you can talk to yourself if you need to calm yourself along the way. And be honest with your companions about what you need, okay, if you're the fearful flyer. And I often talk about them being able to embrace you, being able to touch you, being able to talk to you, and being able to make eye contact with you. This isn't a weakness, it's self-awareness. And maybe it's quiet during takeoff. Maybe it's a hand to hold, or space to use your tools like breathing or visualizations or the Fearless Flight Harmonizer. The key is to think about it in advance and customize your care. There's no one size fits all. But with thought and preparation, you can set yourself apart from everybody else that doesn't plan, and take care of yourself. And you can end up with a smoother, more supported experience. Anxiety doesn't mean something is wrong. It just means that you care enough to prepare. Now, once you get airborne, the work isn't over, but it changes. Okay. Now it's about staying steady and responding to your internal cues with care, not fear. And this is where it's important to learn how to normalize what many flyers experience in the air. Things like turbulence, it's common and expected. It's probably rarer to not have some turbulence than it is to have a smooth flight. And planes are built to handle far more than you can think. And you've heard me talk about that time and again. So try telling yourself, this is just bumpy air, or this is just a river of air running into other rivers of air, causing little burbles and speed bumps. It's annoying, but it's not dangerous. And then for all those other unexpected sounds or movements, these are part of a normal flight. And you say to yourself, that sound may mean the crew is doing their job. And that pertains to a lot of the dinging that you hear from time to time. And what you say to yourself is, that's normal. I just don't understand what it is. And you can ask the flight attendants if you need to, or you can text me and ask me if I'm picking up, or if I see your text message, I'll come back with an answer for you. Okay. And when things like this happen, be aware that you're going to have surges in your adrenaline or spiked fears. It's okay. Take a moment. You can name it. And that's the first thing that we recommend. Name the first, you name it, and then you tame it regarding feelings and stressors. And this is called a stress surge. It's not an emergency. And what you need to do is to remember, whoops, I lost my slide here. Okay. And what you need to remember is the tools that you can use that are more related to relieving stress. Your 4 in, 6 out breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds. Exhale for 6. This activates your body's calming response. I've seen people on the verge and even in panic attacks breathe in and out for 3 reps, 30 seconds, and have a significant increase. Now, doesn't mean they went from a 10 to a 5, but all they needed to do was go from a 10 to a 9 so that they can regain their confidence, that they can manage their feelings and their emotions. Okay. Something called tactile grounding. Touch something soft like your sweater, or grip the armrest gently, or squeeze your partner's hand to bring yourself back into the present. And then go through mental rehearsals. Again, I recommend journaling. I recommend looking back at your journal. Visualize your destination. What are you going to do when you get there? Imagine walking off the plane, feeling proud and relieved at what you just accomplished. These aren't just tricks. They're real tools that rewire your nervous system over and over and over again. And what's so frustrating for me is to see people get on and they just immediately give up. And the reason they give up is because they either, 1, have not planned ahead, or 2, have not sufficiently practiced and rehearsed it. Remember, your mind up here that shouts out all those negative terms and has rehearsed this over and over again. So if you want to compete with that chatter in your mind, you're going to have to practice this in advance. And finally, give yourself credit throughout the flight. You can whisper yourself, hey, way to go, Ron. You're in the air. You're facing your fear with strength, with skill, and with determination. And it points out how you can, all this points to the fact that you learn how to respond rather than react. So you get there, you did it. Whether the flight feels or felt easy or incredibly difficult, the fact is you landed, and you can't ignore that. You stayed with it and you got through it. And this is the moment you want to pause, not just to gather your belongings, but to gather the meaning of what just happened. You just completed a powerful act and demonstrated what I see over and over again, and that is enormous amount of courage. It's why I keep doing this. It is so inspiring to watch people who I know are really struggling, and to watch them get or reach success on flights that they never thought they could do. And when you land, you want to take a moment to reflect. While you're sitting there, maybe you're on the tarmac, delayed, waiting for a gate, whatever. Maybe it's waiting for everybody to get up and deplane. Whatever it is, make sure that you take a moment to reflect. What helped you the most? And if you have the time and the presence and a little journal, which I highly recommend, what helped you the most? Make a note of that. What surprised you about your own resilience? Even if you felt anxious or uncomfortable for much of the flight, it doesn't erase the accomplishment. You made it. And it doesn't erase the successes that you had. So remind yourself, every hard or even hard flights counts. And it isn't about perfection, it's about progress. And if you journal, like I said, jot down a few thoughts. If you use tools like the Fearless Flight Harmonizer, like heart coherent breathing or a visualization, note what worked, what made a difference in that. And don't forget to acknowledge the part that you showed up and stayed in the seat, because that is one of the most difficult things for many people out there. And remember, every flight adds experience. Every step strengthens your nervous system, your elephant and your rider's trust in you. And now you've given this future self that you have more evidence that you can do hard things and come out on the other side stronger. This is one of the things that is so refreshing and rewarding for me. It's to see people not only in their flight anxiety learn how to deal with that, but when they come back to me and give me feedback about other areas of their life that they've seen growth in their self-confidence and their success level. As I wrap up this presentation today, take a moment to acknowledge something. You're doing something powerful. And when you accomplish this, you've done something powerful. You've chosen not to let fear run the show. I had a VIP flight this past week with another VIP student, and he was just so proud of himself for having the courage to take this flight or two flights, which he hadn't done in 36 years. He could not believe that he had accomplished that. And it's so rewarding to watch somebody see that kind of self-gratification that they experience. You've leaned in, you've listened and learned, and maybe even imagine yourself moving through a flight with more calm and confidence than you ever thought possible. Remember, flight anxiety and fear of flying is not a flaw. It's simply your emotional brain, your elephant, trying to protect you with a little too much enthusiasm. But now you have the tools, the language, and insights to help your logical mind, the rider, gently guide your elephant forward. And from packing with intention, which we talked about at the beginning, to breathing at the gate, to celebrating even the smallest wins after landing, you're training your brain that you are safe, capable, and in control. You are literally changing the neuron pathways in your brain, no less than if you learned a foreign language. And you don't need to do this perfectly. That's, I think, the important thing. You just need to keep practicing. And each moment you show up, whether it's booking the ticket or taking the drive to the airport or stepping onto the plane, you are building emotional resilience and rewriting your story. And remember, the theme at Fearless Flight is we help people change the way they think about flying. Because if you don't do anything different, if your thoughts manifest in the same way the next time you go fly, you're very likely to have the same results. So here's your permission slip from good old Capt Ron. Take your time, use your tools, ask for help, celebrate progress. And when that flight comes, remind yourself, this is growth in action. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I thank you for showing up tonight. Yeah, or whether you're live or whether you're going to or watching the replay. And remember, this is growth in action. I want to thank you for being here. Your courage is real. So are your feelings. I don't want to minimize that. The feelings are real, but the perception is somewhat off usually. But for most of you, or for all of you, the courage is real, and it's taking you somewhere beautiful that you really want and deserve to go. So, thanks for tuning in tonight. I'll be back next week with another episode of Fearless Flight Live. Have a great week and happy landing.